Because I want you to think about what you do in your own sense, in your own classroom, in leadership of your students, but also what you do in the school community and with your colleagues as a creative synthesis of all of those things. That it's about working across a whole range of what are called in the leadership literature capabilities, but we'll pick up on some of those towards the end of today. Because in the end, leadership's a term that's, I think, in some ways too loosely used. Real leaders are people that change things, that change things for the better. And in that sense, they make a positive and a meaningful difference to the lives of the people around them. And educational leadership is special because it's about making a difference to the learning of others. And so you just can't say someone's a leader without looking at the consequences of their actions. Whereas you can say, oh, look, someone is in a position of authority, and that's different. It's a different thing because they're sitting there on the organisational chart responsible for stuff. But they might not be a leader in that sense. They might have the authority. But in terms of this stuff, making a difference, they may not make a difference all that much. They might be just sort of treading water or that type of thing. So you can see where leadership and effective school governance are really closely linked. That's why I sort of put these images out there to challenge you to the way in which you think about yourself as a leader. And it doesn't matter where you sit. Some people live their whole lives wondering about where they are on the organisational chart. And they're not very happy, you know. But other people couldn't care less and are as happy as Larry. It's because that's where they are and that's where they're making a difference. So I don't know where Mary McKillop put herself on an organisational chart or what sorts of capabilities that she brought to bear. I'm betting that she had high levels of each of those things in terms of community, in terms of vision, in terms of professionalism, in terms of her ability to organise and how she put it all together. So that's the sense of where we're coming from with this. And I want us to think about how you've already been involved in the process of leadership already in the project that we're working on, the governance project. And what I'm going to do now is invite you to think back on the Catholic life and mission responses that we worked through over the last month or so. And think about the challenges that you think we've got as a Catholic school at in St Bernard's, and more generally. Because as Catholic educators, we're surrounded by metaphor in terms of what Catholic schools are and what they could be. I mean, one of the most significant over recent years has been the Crossroads document from the New South Wales and ACT bishops, exhorting us to do all sorts of things, you know, all very noteworthy things. And so they're trying to exercise leadership. The extent to which we are and have fulfilled those goals is still open to investigation, because each of those aspects about being truly Catholic, about being centres of new evangelisation, and this idea of religious literacy and staff formation and professional learning in REs are still live issues, you know. We're not going to solve this stuff. But it's all part of the context. And so we see the symbolism in terms of crossroads, we see it in terms of signposts, all sorts of things. And we're in a tension, as you know. We're in a marketplace, educational marketplace, at the same time as that we're in a role, and they exist to educate people in the Catholic tradition. And sometimes the marketplace and the Catholic tradition clash. So there's issues there that we need to address. Because in some ways, you could talk about, here's the cross actually, you could talk about Catholic schools as being on the edge of faith. That Bernard mentioned it last night, the idea of the young people coming in and telling us that Jesus loves us and we love Jesus, and then 6 weeks later we kill him. You know, it's that sense of the cross, getting that story across before Easter, or not smiling before Easter. it's about our own faith journey as well. That as teachers in Catholic schools, what parts of the Catholic bit do we really aspire get, and which parts do we are not so keen on, or we don't tell anybody about? Those sorts of stuff. So do we buy the whole deal? So we're on the edge of faith. In some ways, we are at the crossroads because it's where people from all different backgrounds meet. In another sense, we're at the crossroads because our future could be very comfortably middle class, and we could select who we get to teach and who we get to employ and so on, and actually lose sight of the mission that we were talking about earlier this morning. So there's real issues here for us. When we talked about that in the survey and at the staff meetings over the last few weeks, we've said, well, what are these questions? And in the survey, the interpretations and implications are listed there, that we are at different stages on our journey. That we've shared, fair enough, RE is a specialist area. We've got RECs with specific responsibilities for a reason. We've organised schools that way. We certainly acknowledge that priests and students and parents and parishioners all have different perspectives. These are all parts of what we work with. Similarly, the decisions, this is where the governance part comes in, decisions about Catholic life and mission happen throughout the school community. You do it on a Monday morning or on a Friday afternoon or Ash Wednesday or wherever, in your own class with your own students. But it also happens at a school level, and it also happens at a school community level, and there's different people involved. So the way in which you understand and live out this Catholic life and mission stuff is through, and in those places, but through your everyday relationships. It's also through the social justice and outreach initiatives, the sort of the broader curriculum aspects, and it's also through the liturgical activities. What I'd like us to do is to consider now where we take this stuff in a governance sense. Look at it as a governance issue. You know, you're full bottle on this. You've had a chance to answer those questions. You've considered the feedback at the last staff meeting, and what I want you to do now is have a think now in your teams about those questions. What's the meaning of Catholic life and mission? Why is it important? And is there a problem? Given that what we've said, there's a desire to be more involved, but not necessarily highly involved, right? That's what, and the interpretations that came through so far. So as a governance question, what we're trying to do is that very first step is saying, have we got something? Have we got an issue here or not? At the moment, for us, it's a question of then, if there is a problem, what should be done and by whom?